are we?
To order the
Flagpole?
September 14th regular meeting of the Board of Education with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just to let everybody know that there is a need for an executive session for the purpose of discussing matters leading to the appointment of a particular corporation and specific pending litigation. Next will be our privilege of the floor. And I'll read our little ditty here. The board offers privilege of the floor at each regular meeting to give BHBL residents the opportunity to share concerns, provide information, or ask questions. It is not the practice of the board to answer these questions immediately or engage in debate on any particular topic during privilege of the floor. However, someone from the district will respond to any concerns raised within 24 to 48 hours. Speakers will not be allowed to discuss individual district personnel or students during this time. Such concerns should be brought to the superintendent during regular business hours. Privilege of the floor is limited to 30 minutes, and each speaker is asked to limit their comments to 5 minutes. Any group or organization wishing to address the board is encouraged to identify a single spokesperson. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Copies of prepared statements should be left with the board secretary. First sign up is Kristen Ryder.
Good evening, all. So my topic tonight is pretty basic, is the time change for the Board of Education meetings. I wasn't at the last BOE meeting where I believe it was discussed. So it was a little shocking to me when I got the email that it was at 6 o'clock tonight and not 7. I use every minute of every single day to work around my 3 children and working. It is concerning to me because I, as a parent, have to make the choice of whether to be with my children and give them to support or be here and know what's going on in the district, know things that are happening, bring concerns to your attention. And I feel like I have to make a big choice, either sacrificing time for my children or being here and being an involved parent. I also believe just with the time change of going to 6 to 7, and I understand that it was because the meetings were very lengthy last year, I think that we're in a whole different realm this year than opposed to last year. And maybe possibly that time change should have been brought to everyone's attention last year instead of this year. I think that we're moving forward. I don't think that we're going to have a lot of the concerns that we have had the past couple of years. Even our next meeting, that is September 28th, I believe our student rep has a tennis match that is lasting until 6:55. So does she have to choose between coming to a Board of Education meeting or playing her match? I think that is a lot of concern for me as a parent and other parents that I know that have to make that rush or that alter, trying to schedule rides or picking their children up. My husband works for the state. He works down in Albany. He's lucky to get home by 6 o'clock. If he was a parent that came to these meetings, obviously I am, because my schedule allows for it, but those parents who are active, how are they gonna get home, make dinner, and then come to the meeting for 7 o'clock? It's just a concern for me. And I hope that you take that into consideration of everyone's schedule, and that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kristen. Next is Tom Bird.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Tom.
How you guys doing? Good. So I'm just here to go over, on the agenda tonight is a approval of a movie for the middle school named Soul. It's a Disney movie. I've seen it. It's actually a good movie. I like it.
I like it.
So the only situation that I had, and I talked to some people after seeing it, is that there are people who have not seen it. There are people who are really wondering what it's about. And with, I know many of you guys probably know that Brittany is on the shared decision-making team. And in moving forward with shared decision-making through parent process and teacher process, and community process, whatever it may be, these things that just pop up that are going to be approved, right? The movie will probably be approved. I'm not saying I have a problem with that. I think what I'm saying is that the shared decision-making process should really be about everything that's happening in our schools. So this is a principal matter, I believe, that this movie just coming out, I mean, it was dated 7/25, so it came out on the 25th. It's just being approved it was approved today to come to the meeting, and then it'll probably be approved tonight. But where in that process did anybody have the chance to reach out to the parents and say, hey, here's a movie that we're going to show to the middle schoolers. Take a look at it, watch it if you can, and give us your feedback on it. And if the feedback is negative, then maybe we need to find another movie. If the feedback is positive, then we're going to run with it. But if that's approved tonight, the shared decision-making process is not there. So where do we meet in the middle with how these things are done moving forward? Because it's not just about the movie, it's about other things that can come down the line that might be much more important than middle schoolers watching a movie that I actually like. So in this process, I would just ask that maybe from this point on, if something like this does come up, maybe table it for a month and say, here's what we're going to do for the shared decision-making process. We're going to throw it out to the parents, and we're going to get feedback. And if you get no feedback and parents don't watch it, then it's on you guys to make the decision. But if there is negative feedback about certain things that come out, maybe it should be talked about more within the parents and the community and with this shared decision-making group that's out there. So I just wanted to lay that on the line from a principle basis. Please don't think that I'm bashing the movie itself, but just the process that happens. I think we need to move forward on the process of the shared decision-making and everything that goes out there that our children are going to deal with. There's so many hot button topics out there that if something slides through, it could be a headache for you guys, right? So that's really what I just wanted to talk about, and I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Kevin. Next is Patricia Cassidy.
Thank you again, everybody. Thank you for the time, thank you for the privilege. Bear with me, I'm a little bit, everything in life, I'm a little bit tired tonight, but as usual, being a parent and a worker and so forth. But always it's interesting because what he brought up about shared decision making, what is that process? What are we doing for that process too? I think as Mr. Marshall knows from when I first came on board in the school district, when you have a child that has special needs, what I've gone through in the process when I first came here, and when I first came to the Board of Education was because I came on board because I was being told, because my stepchild, that this was the program for my child, whether I agreed with it or not, going through the special ed process. And therefore, and after going through numerous meetings, then I said, I gotta take it up to the next levels. I've gotta go to the board. I've gotta go to those further levels, because my child would have been segregated at that point when he was in an integrated preschool. And going through the process, and I'm very grateful for the board that you went through a process and you heard what I said And we found a way to make an integrated kindergarten for my child. As much as is possible, the inclusion of kids with special needs in a typical environment is shown by research to increase the growth of those children who have special needs, and also to increase the growth, for lack of a better word, typical children. What I also kind of found out through the process too is that the way they were steering, we have 3 elementary schools in the region. The way they were steering children was, they were steering the elementary schools to be geared towards people with specific developmental challenges. One was, and this isn't something that you get told transparently as a parent when you're asking your child to be integrated. One was an elementary school for children with autism. One was for social emotional needs, and the third one was for individuals with they considered functional needs. Least restrictive environment says to the greatest extent possible, you're placing a child in the environment that they would go to if they didn't have a disability. When I learned that, that kind of changed my thought, and I'm trying to unlearn. I went through the process. I got in a better environment for my child in elementary school, which I'm extremely grateful that he was included because I saw greater growth. When you go through the transition period, he got pushed back into being more segregated. Things become more complex, but it was not a good environment for my child for 3 years. And to get him out of that environment, what I want for the process, I think when you think of shared decision making, are we being transparent? Does a parent know every single way? Can we sit down and talk and say, what are the ways we can do it? What are the ways, if there's a challenge? Because if you have a special need, there's just challenges. If you're an individual, any typical, and actually every single person on this board has challenges. And what you go through in life is to find ways to be able to develop yourself in spite of challenges. I like the term shared decision making. I don't really know much about it, but I don't think in my process of going through the system, it's shared decision making. I don't think it's as transparent. I would like some response. I need to know what kind of reading programs I can get for my child to be helped, what kind of foreign language. He's demonstrated skill in that area, but he's not allowed to take a course in that area. So those, again, are 2 of the areas. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Patricia.
With that, we have our consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Jen?
Second.
Patrick? Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I just wanted to put down who moved first.
I just wanted to make a comment before we talk, just specific to one of the comments that was made in public session, privilege to the floor, to Mr. Bird's comments. So there is a committee that the district, Lakshmi and Patrick are both on the committee, looking at our shared decision-making plan, our biennial review. It's an every 2-year review of our shared decision-making plan. So I just wanted to clarify that plan it's a great process so far. We have a large committee of nearly 20 people, very engaged, lots of discussion, lots of parents, PTA presidents, eliciting input and then bringing it to the table, meeting outside of the meeting in subgroups, and looking at our shared decision-making plan. What are the subjects, the agenda items that should be on the plan? How do we represent the groups on the plan? how are decisions made or recommendations to the administration and the Board of Education made through these committees. So it's definitely very much a work in progress. I think, Brittany will say that, there's a lot going on there, and there's a lot. We thought it might be 3 or 4 meetings. We've had 4 meetings. I think now we need to schedule. We have 2 more scheduled. It'll be a while before we get done. So it's definitely digging into this exact issue of what are the types of things that a good building level planning team should be working on, and how do we make sure that there's representation at the table. So I feel like kind of they're past, in some ways, these 2 things are passing in the night in a way. I don't know that every single curricular decision could possibly be made like in that setting. That's kind of a more of a big picture setting, or maybe some particular controversial, like we have these films and things that come forward. You guys see them all, we've approved them at the last few meetings, just resources. This happens to be a feature length film, but lots of them are, the movies you would see in class, like in a French class or something. They're just, they're just the general resources that get used by teachers. But I think that would be, the topic itself would be a topic for a building planning team, a building council to take up, because the focus of building council is supposed to be teaching and learning, it's supposed to be student performance, and results and data, and how, building council has taken different routes in different buildings over the years. I feel like we have a better than average commitment to building council having it minutes, but I mean, we're certainly, it strays over the years, and this committee is doing a nice job of kind of like, what did we say yesterday? It was
Correcting or
course
correcting.
correction. Making some course corrections to it to say what. Yeah, exactly. Though I thought that was the perfect way to phrase it, and that was one of the parents' way of talking about it. So I just didn't want to let this pass without saying it's definitely a work in progress, and I think this is a perfect example of when it's functioning the way we'd like it to function. This would be a topic that would be, the recommendation would have gone through building council, not maybe necessarily for a particular piece of curriculum, but for how things get out sooner or something, so people can look at them if they have questions or something like that, just the global picture.
As a parent / board member sitting on that committee, I think one of the things that came out in our last shared decision-making meeting, and they're all online and available to see, so none of this I don't think is information that shouldn't be shared. One of the biggest things coming out of that is building council makeup and building council agendas, or like what's the end goal, the visions of the building councils. And for each school, not just elementary, middle, and high school has it been different, but to your point, the course correcting is because Charlton Heights might do something, I'm not saying this is the fact, but that Charlton Heights might do something a little bit differently than Stevens is doing. Even the makeup of the councils is not, we found yesterday, is not uniform across all the schools. So, if this is, I think at the middle school and high school in particular, the conversation was had yesterday that those should be more student education and achievement focused than they have been, just because of the way things have gone. So I think this is a great example of maybe if the building councils were, maybe as we are rejiggering how some of these building councils work and codifying how the building councils are supposed to work, this is something that maybe would have been brought up ahead of time before it gets to the board of ed.
My point for bringing it up is as Tom said, most things are thinking, man, if we were 6 months down the road, it would be the perfect venue to bring up. Again, not what is the every exact curriculum. I mean, that we have to leave to the professionals that we hire, but like a process for kind of having your eyes on things, and maybe saying, hey, we'd love to be able to know what the films are ahead, just so we could research, and then if we did have any concerns, let the board know ahead. Again, it's not about trying, because I'm sensitive to, we have to let teachers, have good resources if the board approves them, and be creative and stuff. But at the same time, I think the best thing you said, Tom, was basically saying, don't you want to know if it's going to be something that's going to cause a hiccup? We do want to know. I mean, we'd be crazy to be trying to make decisions that we didn't know that in general, we have a general consensus for.
Right. As a parent, I think it's kind of jarring to have the first place that you see something or hear of something at the Board of Ed meeting when it's getting voted on. right? So I think that was your point, is that the building councils, even if we're not micromanaging, which we don't want to do, obviously we don't want to micromanage what the professionals are doing, but even if this is a list of things going to the board for approval. Parents, if you have feedback on a particular topic, let us know. Like, I think that's fair.
And then interestingly, there's been this movie that took me a little bit by surprise because it's a movie that's rated PG and did, you know, it's within like the general Disney kind of genre. But we did a few years back have a movie that came up that was also a cartoon. It was a cartoon fairy tale, highly acclaimed. And it was called Pan's Labyrinth, I think. And one of the board members, when it first came through, was concerned about it was critically acclaimed, but it was like a violent cartoon. And the board member brought up and just felt, especially it was after, I believe it was after a school shooting that had taken place, and he just felt like it was just too much. And he did so. We did table it, and you know there was some question of like, well, is it, you know, censorship of it or not? And then we had a whole discussion of that. And then ultimately the board did not approve that film. So like, you know, it's a worthwhile discussion to have. And I think the shared decision-making teams that functioning properly could put some structures in place to help that.
Yeah, I think Tom made some good points. The transparency piece, which goes back to the process that you guys are working on currently, and that communication piece that you guys have been talking about. So nobody's blindsided, I guess. But like the accountability, transparency, and communication. And I think, and I've watched some of the shared decision-making meetings, and people are working on it. They're serious about it. They're committed to it, and it's a good process. But this one just seems, like you said, slipping through now, and maybe there was a little bit more communication at the building level. At the same time, you want to give that autonomy to the professionals. So that's the fine line that you walk sometimes.
And the reality is, I think when, you know, all the years I've been here, that's the only movie, that Pan's Labyrinth is the only one that even warranted any discussion. So the reality is, when it comes before the board, if it is sensitive, this is right or wrong. This is the way the process is. Like, this is the board responsibility to approve these films, which is kind of odd. Always struck me as odd anyway. Then we approve textbooks and we approve videos. But teachers can bring in other materials to the class. They can show shorts from the NBC News. They can show things that are very biased one way or the other, either way, without coming before the board. And then certain things have to come before the board for further discussion. I don't know how it developed, that some things do and some don't, and why these are, but it's good that we have this discussion when they are videos or movies or topics that are really sensitive. I was trying to do my research on this today because people had raised it, and quite honestly, I agree with Tom. I didn't say anything subversive in it or anything that would warrant us turning it down. And I don't know where that line will come down in terms of shared decision-making and how much parent involvement there is in curricular decisions and some of those sorts of things. But certainly, I think the important thing is making sure when we talk about transparency, that people do know what's on the board agenda and it's out there in advance. So if we do have a movie that parents want to come and talk about and share concerns with, I don't think actually any parents came to complain about Pan's Labyrinth. And I remember our student reps were very, very supportive of watching it because of some of the themes. It was one that was actually driven by the board. So good check and balance process.
Checks and balances, yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say, check and balance. But I also look at Dave because I know I have a lot of trust in these coming before Mr. Collins here as well. So it makes it a little bit easier as a board member when you know the guy that's taking a look at them, but not all parents do, in fairness.
So, and again, not to keep just piling on, as Don would say, but you know, basically there's a process in place too on the opposite side with every curricular resource film that goes through. Firstly, if it's an R-rated movie, you know, we do have an internal policy that has a permission slip at the high school level. They can't be shown below that level. Parents do have the option to know that and obviously see that in advance, and they, you know, nothing would be shown until those permission slips come back. PG-13 at the middle school, PG at the elementary school, PG at the middle school, PG-13 at the high school. We basically trust in the fact that those are rated, you know, to be generally at the level or above the age of students who go there, but we still have everything to be reviewed by at minimum 2 members of the department, the K-12 supervisor or principal, and then by me. Anything that has, you know, we have an internal discussion through our curriculum committees, anything that has any level of you know, subjectivity, foreign films or things that we use in our world language, sometimes, you know, different things that come out of Europe or things that come out of other areas, you know, maybe there's kind of different expectations of what's acceptable for grade levels. We review those, we talk about it. I always ask before I sign, is there anything in here that you think I should know about that the board wouldn't want to be, you know, find out after the fact that there's something. So we have a process internally, and I have no problem, with discussing those types of things. With shared decision-making, again, our building councils typically, the point at which things get brought to building council is when they affect the entire building. So generally, department level decisions, which a lot of the films are actually hashed out at department level, and they're only brought to building councils, again, if there's some reason why they think it might be controversial or have that. And we do have texts and we do have movies that we consider very controversial, and I think, Tom's right, this one doesn't have controversy. I think this is more about what level of discussion beyond our already improved practices do we want to bring to the SDM process. So I think it lives with the SDM committee at this point to keep hashing that out. I do feel very comfortable that I wouldn't blindside you with something that you would think, and again, everyone has a different level of what they view as controversial, but if I'm pretty clear with my members, like, no surprises, basically. So, and it's been a pretty good process, because we've watched some things and said, and then those things I kind of would preset you that there might be some content that would be a little bit more questionable in there, and why we could use it if there were nudity, if there were foul language or violence or something of that nature.
So just because I think the parent involvement discussion is really important, I will pile on a little bit, Dave, if you don't mind, but we don't need to belabor these, but two quick questions. One is in response to your email today, Dave, which was excellent. We really have a formal opt-out process when we talk about health and gender and sexuality discussions, which makes sense. But is it not the case? I am pretty darn sure that my kids have had maybe concerns with a certain video, and it was more just, for example, say the violence of a Pan's Labyrinth, where we thought, our little guy's not going to be able to handle that as well. Do we not? We've no process, or do we encourage parents at least go talk to the teacher if that's the case on an individual basis? I know it's not a formal opt-out process, but I mean, we are open to that at all levels, aren't we? Where parents and students can still go to a teacher or a department head and say, look, this is just going to be really rough on my kid. Can we make some alternative, arrangements here?
Just be a little bit more, sorry, saying for like a video that might be shown in class?
Or a certain class A, a certain book they're reading, if there's really something that student is finding troublesome or difficult. I mean, we do still encourage parents to at least talk to the teachers in those individual cases, right? But no formal opt-out process.
There's no formal opt-out process. The state gives us, with particular health curriculum, it's written into state like that. There are those particular topics that have a formal opt-out process. Beyond that, curriculum materials, classes, there's actually, if you look into the case law, there's no opt-out option formally, but there would always be the ability for any parent to talk to a teacher and say, let's just say, for example, maybe something happened recently in family where there was an event where maybe somebody had an experience. A house burned down, God forbid anything, and you're going to be now watching a movie with that type of thing.
Watching Backdraft.
I think you would have, an example. I think that you would always have that relationship. That's that's what our existence is about, is taking care of kids and being sensitive to the issues on an individual level. So absolutely. And then, in the syllabus, a lot of times, reviewing course syllabi when they come home, or course notes of seeing what's in it. Again, usually it's as kids get through high school where they might be taking an elective where they might be more sensitive. I think those are good things, because a lot of the syllabi will outline, the text or, ancillary material, so you can have that dialogue in advance. But I think if you ever have this sense that, your child might be going through something, reaching out and letting the guidance counselor know, letting their teachers know, and saying just, if you're reading anything, watching anything that's of that nature, there's always the opportunity to have an individual, relationship with the teacher and make those decisions, of course.
That has always been our experience with our teachers, have been fantastic, but I didn't want to say it, I'd rather it come from you. So the second quick question for you, Dave. We've had, of course, Suzanne Rayoman here talking about when there are books in the library that parents may find truly offensive, they can bring them up for discussion. We've actually, this is 7th year, we've never had one come before the board because it wasn't addressed satisfactorily, which doesn't surprise me with Suzanne and her team, of course. Do we have anything like that for videos? Does the same thing apply, or is it only if those materials are in the library?
I mean, we have a formal plan or policy for the library to review books. There's a whole process that goes through it. We don't necessarily have that for curricular materials, because again, those materials get approved on every single individual one comes before the board and we approve it. We don't approve every single library book, obviously. We rely on on that. So we have a process where, because the approval process for library books is a more general process, same concept. The librarians get book lists, they read reviews, they talk with other colleagues, they talk with Suzanne. But because of just the volume in there, if there's something that gets into the library through a batch purchase or something, we have that process to analyze it. We don't for films, but certainly if someone brought it to our attention in 1982 by the board, you know, and things have changed a lot in 40 years, and a video goes in and somebody looks at it and says, geez, you know, the tone of that doesn't really apply in 2022, and it's brought it to our attention, we'd be happy to review it.
Two cases, one where a board brought a film brought a film up and was asking to remove the film. And in one case, the court upheld the board's ability to take something out of a collection, and the other, it didn't. It said, and in both of them, it was based on whether or not it was inappropriate material versus like a speech issue. So if it's a speech issue, the court would say you can't just promote politically, but if you think that the content has become inappropriate or seems inappropriate or shouldn't be there, you can't. So it upheld it in one case.
I appreciate that, and I don't want to take too much time on it, but I think it's important for parents to know that there are some other mechanisms, Dave, as you pointed out, for us to be able to have parents involved, review those materials, know that it's coming before the board, share their thoughts on those tonight, and even bring them back up at a future date. It is all certainly what we want, and then as obviously the shared decision-making process will continue. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Next up is our action item. Oh, sorry. I told you last night's medication today.
Why we're here.
We have votes. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Next up is the action items, consideration of approval of recommendations from the Committee on Special Education. Can I get a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second. Don and Jen. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Discussion items. Patrick, did you want to?
I'm just having a back issue. Yes, so I just wanted to that we had a request from the Transportation Department a couple of weeks back. I believe it was the August 17th meeting. Where the Transportation Department came out and asked the board to consider a request to name the transportation center dedicated to the memory of Joe Zub. And the one issue that we had there is that the board would need to make an exception to its own policy. The authority to do. And it's because it was a 3-year, because we just named the pool after Matt Turner, and there's typically a 3-year wait period before naming another facility. But again, that the board does have the ability to override that in extenuating circumstances. So I just wanted to formally get it on here and let the board have an opportunity to let me know if there's anything you need. I get you copies of the statement that was read that evening. There's a 6-month wait period before any kind of decision is made for an opportunity for the board to gather feedback from the community. So there's no urgency here, but I wanted to get that clock going and give the board an opportunity. So if you have any questions, if there's anything you need, I just wanted to formally start that process.
Just being like a newer member of the board, can you explain some of the thought behind the every 3-year rule? Or
I think
or
we
policy?
do get requests fairly regularly to name things over the years. We named the Stevens Library after Mary Egan a few years back, who was a retired member of the faculty who passed away and had been here for 40 some years.
Mm-hmm.
We then, obviously had the pool, aquatic center. We've had other requests for spaces, gymnasiums, and things like that. So I think it was just to sort of just keep the board from being overwhelmed by requests. I mean, you could have a request to name something theoretically, once it got going, you could have people, you could be dealing with it all the time. So I think the idea when we wrote that policy, that was 6 or 7 years ago, was to kind of just sort of keep it at bay a little
Kind
bit.
of sad discussion, like
Yeah.
to have, right? Like,
Well, sometimes it's not always that, because sometimes it's a retirement or something, so like you might want to have the excuse to be able to say, look, we,
Yeah.
you know, but then there's extenuating circumstances
Right.
like this case where it's tragic and it's sudden and, you know, and also such an interesting timing of, you know, the gentleman designed that building and maybe essentially, you know, basically.
Well, and it was untimely demise of both of them, so
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
exceptional. It's not
Right.
Definitely
what you
extenuating.
would typically,
I just wanted to know if there was
The only
something.
question I have, Patrick, you said there's 6 months, so there's a process to gather feedback from the
To
community.
sort of let
Out
it,
there.
they say, just to kind of let
But
it.
is there something that internally, administratively, that we do to try to get that
We
feedback?
put a story on the website, most likely.
I assume through social media.
Yeah, put a story on the website, gathered the application and the speech that was given that night, and would say that the board is, you know, considering this and we'll be taking this up in the spring, and, you know, and again, you wouldn't need to decide if you wanted to override your own policy until the spring, so there's really no urgency here, but just that. If we're gonna-
But at the same time, if we're gonna let a committee move forward and start gathering feedback, I think if the board was really opposed to doing that, it would be fair
Say
to
that.
state those opinions early on. I'll just say I'm in full support. This is absolutely extenuating. If there's extenuating, the two tragic circumstances we just saw
yes.
do qualify. So I would support the continuation of the process. And again, I wouldn't say, I'm not saying that so we do it or not do it. I'm not trying to, I may not even be here, 'cause I think I've informally done after, or no, it's May.
You just got here, where are you going?
No, but I'm not
Yeah.
here for a
Coming
full
back.
term, right?
So 6
I didn't,
months,
wait, want to point me again? No, I'll say no next time.
Yeah, it'll be March.
make up your mind.
It's March, right? So it may not even hit. My point is, this may not hit when I'm here, so I'm not looking to influence the decision. It's simply to say, if there are board members that were opposed to it, it would be fair to mention that now before this committee process.
Or even if not opposed, if you just had any
Right,
thoughts
absolutely.
strongly, one way or the other.
As Patrick said, it's you know, very unfortunate and certainly extenuating. And, you know, I don't know Joe, but obviously his staff was extremely supportive. They showed up
Emotional and
and
committed.
extremely supportive. And I mean, I think we should get the clock going, get the process going. And then if we want to do it sooner than 6 months, then we bring it back to the table. Patrick, I think you keep bringing it up, reminding us, where do we stand? What feedback have you gotten?
Right.
And then we can make a decision.
That's a great point. Can I just ask that quick? Thanks for bringing that up, Dave. When we say there's a process to gather feedback, is that just for anybody that's watching or listening? Is that supposed to come to us? Is there going to be a committee? I thought there was a committee that we had to put together. Am I wrong
No,
on
the
that?
committee is the committee that worked to get to come before you. So they
Okay,
met a few
got it.
times, they asked me to come down and explain the process to them.
Got it.
So we did it. So that's the nominating committee.
So feedback should come to the board.
But I think it's fair to keep the 6 months because just lets the dust settle and anyone who might be reluctant to come forward or anyone who felt differently would have some time to
Yeah.
put their thoughts together too.
Exactly.
Anybody have anything more?
I just want to say I thought that the presentation that was given was absolutely beautiful, and I
It's great.
was- it was hard to keep a dry eye, and I feel like it's unfortunate that we have to have these discussions, because it was two very tragic losses of obviously two people who were very important to the district.
Beloved, yes. Next on discussion items is return to pre-COVID procedures, video of board meetings. Want to talk about that?
Sure. So one of the questions, so obviously it wasn't planned tonight to have all the technical difficulties at the beginning, but remember before COVID, we've been videoing meetings for years, but we weren't videoing them live, if you remember back. We always videotaped the meetings and then published them the next day or so. So we archived all of our meetings, but they weren't live. Right now, to do them live, we need to have tech staff here. That's what happened tonight. We kind of scrambled to get the folks online, but so I guess the question is there a value in continuing the live now that we're back in? Everything else we're doing is trying to get back to normal, and we're back in business. And one of the things that we've done is I asked Dottie to book the library and this room every night that we have a board meeting, so that we always have the option to flex over into the library if we have a particularly large turnout. This room obviously isn't too big. So the question we talked about in the agenda meeting is just, is there a value in the live broadcast or the taped and released the next day broadcast? So in other words, do we want to go back to what we used to do, or do we want to stick with what we're doing now?
We were broadcasting the meetings up to, I think, the action items live.
They weren't live back then, though.
They weren't?
No, they were taped.
Pre-COVID restrictions, we didn't do live board meetings? Is that right?
It was the next day, they were uploaded to the website, so you
Are
can,
the meetings today that's live, they're able to still see after the meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
they're still archived.
What-
Okay, yeah, that's my question.
What's the, only having been here for COVID meetings, I will ask, what's the downside of continuing the live stream?
You just have to have staff here
Just getting staff here until they change the.
until whatever time we leave.
There are people on now watching it live, right? You can still watch it through the Google Meet, can't you?
Well, yes, in this setting with, what do we have, 8 people here.
Yeah.
But, when it gets to be, we've had some experiences when it got to be, you don't really have a lot of control over it. It's not like they're just an audience, everybody there is also, I guess it's kind of like they're sitting in the room, honestly. So when we had the bigger meetings, we got away from using Google Meet because the chat was flying around and people were turning their mics on and off, and it was,
But can't you just mute
Disruptive
the
to the
mics
meeting.
and not have the chat active and then just keep running through Google Meet so it is live?
And
Not
then
have
if you
people here?
had a meeting with more than 100 people, not that we're expecting that, but if you had a meeting with more than 100 people, I think Google blocks people out at a certain point.
Do they even at this level?
yeah.
Google
Ideally, it
restriction.
would
That's
be.
why we went to the live meetings because we had a couple of board meetings that there were so many
Yeah.
attendees that couldn't get out
Live streaming.
Ideally, they would have an option for just,
attending.
even with this, if you could, instead of having everyone have to attend into the meeting, if you could just publish it right from a button in Google Meet out to YouTube, that would be very easy then. You can't do that. You can do what's called a live stream, but it can only be within the organization, within the domain of BHBL.org.
Okay.
So it's just clunky, that's all. I mean, you can see tonight and then, but it's not something we can't do. It's just the question was, we're moving everything back to normal. We didn't know if we wanted to, is this do we want to just stick with live meetings, live video broadcasts?
I think the increasing value and expectations around communication and transparency, I think it's to our credit that we're willing to do that. And even if it had to, it's twice a month, so I'm always sensitive to staff. Moving the meetings up probably helps staff a little bit too in terms of their long days. So we're sensitive to that, but at the same time, I think it's a priority to make sure that, our discussions are live and open to whoever wants to tune in. Will come. So I would, it's not too difficult.
It's not too difficult.
Yeah.
It's just, in the
It gets
interest
hard
of, we were just
sometimes.
wondering, are we going back to the way it was, or is this a new thing that's
Is this
just?
a new normal or was it
I also think that there's things that have come out technology-wise and maybe otherwise and engagement-wise from COVID that maybe if they're working and if they're valuable, we can keep them. I don't think it's great to go back to as much pre-COVID as we can, but if it allows accessibility, if it allows real-time information for people who might otherwise not be able to be here or be able to see it the next day, I don't see the harm in it if it's not, completely.
Do we meet all the regulations when we stream it on Google Meet as opposed to live streaming?
Yes,
ADA
as
stuff?
long as, so this is
can't
something I
do
wanted to bring up to the
it.
board as well. There's new, after the state of emergency was ended the other day, the new open meetings law pertaining to video allows for extenuating circumstances a board member to join a public meeting through video. However, if you do that, there's supposed to be, first of all, extenuating circumstances, not just, at any time. And secondly, once a board member joins by video, we need to allow privilege of the floor through video, and we need to allow people to join, which we already do, allow people to join through video. But you need to also open up every aspect that the member has to the public as well. So, so it'll be, that gets a little bit clunky when you start having the privilege of the floor online off. Like it's going to be harder to bring people in. I think the open meetings law is really saying they're discouraging people joining remotely and encouraging people to be in person.
Yeah.
Doors open and have people there.
But that's not the same as so we're talking,
That's different, yeah.
That's a different
Yes,
conversation.
different
Okay,
issue,
all
but
right,
similar,
okay.
but related.
It just seems to me, and obviously this is a president and vice president decision, but the only extenuating circumstance where you need someone to really be live and vote is if we didn't have a quorum. Right, because then you may want to take those extra steps.
Take those extra steps.
But even then,
So the
tabling a
percentage
motion is
is-
not.
Yes, oh yes, great point.
Yeah.
You have to be, there has to be a physical quorum.
Here.
Oh, there still has to be a physical.
Still has to be a
So
And
there's-
the extenuating circumstances is that there's something extenuating for the board member
Right,
not
right,
able
right,
to be
right.
there.
And so just so you
Can't be
guys
a
know,
quorum.
if someone says, hey, I'd really like to join, it'll trigger a couple things on our end that we have to open the meeting up on video fully so that people can participate online, can be privileged to the floor online, things like that. So,
Unless we're streaming via Google Meet and board members just watching and not participating, board members
Right.
considered,
Correct.
right? So
right. Yeah,
I
that's,
think with the end of the COVID exemption, I think we have to check on Google Meet if it meets all the requirements and it's not live streamed on YouTube. correct?
But so my
Are we
thoughts,
talking, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't hear, I didn't.
my thoughts are if we have the room booked, we have the library booked at the same time we have this booked. So if it's a real time change, we have that option. And before COVID, we had uploaded it the next day. So whether people were here watching live, they have the opportunity to come and watch live if they want to. What you're saying is they wouldn't otherwise be able to chat in or ask questions if we kept it the way it was right now. They can't. Public can't chat in and ask any questions.
No, right.
So what would be the difference in uploading it the next day and let them ask questions, or anyone who has a question would be able to ask the next day when it was uploaded?
Information,
It's just-
transparency.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of if
Communication.
someone's here at the meeting and getting information real time and then goes home and their neighbor's on a walk and doesn't get to see the meeting until the next day, then they can't have a conversation. I think it's just optics.
Why not?
Yeah, I guess if it's not a harm to record it and listen to it the next day, then what's the harm of live streaming it?
And that's why I kept coming back to the Google Meet, because we don't need staff for that, right? Like, we're on Google Meet now, do we need anybody to?
Will Google Meet translate the voice into text on the screen in real time the way YouTube stream was?
No, for ADA
That's
compliance.
that's the
Oh,
only question I have, is if
Gotcha.
we do it through Google Meet, we just need to make sure that we're meeting all, because
Well-
COVID stuff just expired.
Yeah.
So I think the rules are back to kind of a different.
and also it's nice, I mean, I think if you're not even participating, it's a nicer look to be watching it on YouTube
Yes.
because it's bigger, it takes up the whole screen,
Yeah.
you don't have all the little boxes and people are changing the boxes and stuff, so
Yeah.
I do think that the YouTube stream is nice.
I'm just thinking of staff, like Don said, I mean, if we could do it without having staff come in, but we can still broadcast live, sure, be all for it.
We still have
And
the normal
Why-
communication streams, people want to reach us.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't, so I guess since, again, I've never done this pre-COVID, you don't have to have staff here if you're just videoing, sorry, if we're,
All you gotta do is turn off the camera.
so previously, you'd have someone turn on a camera,
They'd leave.
they'd
Well,
leave.
previously, there was no such thing as Google Meet before.
I'm not
So-
talking about Google
so-
Meet, like in,
No,
so
just
taking
before-
Google Meet out of
Before
it.
COVID.
But before COVID, we did have staff, we had a camera, a center camera that filmed everybody.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have-
Post-COVID, we can just use this owl now, so
But-
we can take care of that
so-
ourselves.
So pre-COVID, if you had a staff member who was hitting the video camera, they would then leave?
No,
Sometimes
So they would
stay
stay.
turned it off.
So that's, so then
Sometimes they
I'm,
turn
so
it
I guess that's my question, is what's the difference if they stayed behind a video camera and we uploaded it the next day, or if we live stream it on YouTube and they have to be
they
there
don't
anyway?
need to be there for that. That's the thing, is that
Okay,
post-COVID, we can hit record ourselves on that owl camera. We don't need any staff. We can be, just like we did at the Shared Decision.
so then the live
Just
streaming
record it.
isn't a staffing issue? Right, isn't that what was said before, was that live streaming, if we did a live stream, it was a staffing issue?
If we know that, this would be tape delay. If we do this, it's a tape delay. I just hit record, we take the thing, send it to Tara in the morning, she puts it on the webpage.
We need staff.
If
We
it's a
need to
live
start the live stream
stream.
because they have to
That was my
go
question.
into this meet and join it and then stream it out of their computer to YouTube.
But that's why they were getting caught up. We can live stream this ourselves. It's just only on Google
It's
Meet.
a Google Meet.
Yeah, we need a staff member to do it through YouTube.
I mean,
Okay,
staff have,
Yeah.
you have flex time. with
But if we,
staff,
but
right?
like, if we go through Google Meet, two things. A, it's not really a video of the meeting, it's a video of a video conference. with
Right.
All the windows and bubbles and everything. And number two, to Chris's point, it doesn't have the level of, translate that.
I don't know if we need that. We have
Definitely
to ask.
need it.
Yeah.
I think for the 2 times a month that we're meeting, my personal preference would be that you live stream it and not upload it the next day.
Can a staff member do this from, sorry, Don, can a staff member do this from home now?
Yes.
Okay. They don't have to be, before they would work the
A
camera.
staff member
and
can
move
live
around
stream
with it.
from home?
They can bring their laptop
Yeah.
home and.
I mean,
It
it's a
doesn't
pretty
seem like
important.
it's too onerous to
It's
put
not,
that.
it's
Okay.
not huge.
Yeah, no, you never said it was. And again, this flex time, every staff member at some point or other that puts in, goes outside the 9 to 5 window, and you have flex time for that. And, this is pretty
I would
important.
looking to make that decision right now.
I mean, we'll just keep doing what we're doing if everybody wants us to do.
Especially if they can do it from home, they don't have to work the camera anymore. It seems easy enough just to be able to, again, I don't know what I'm doing with this stuff, but it seems like if you're
Just to
just making
confirm
it
right now,
go to YouTube.
I'm sorry,
No, it's
just to confirm, right now, even though we are have the ability to live stream, we are also uploading it.
It automatically.
It automatically.
It just goes to YouTube.
Yeah.
It's in archives.
Our YouTube channel.
Right.
Okay.
So.
And I will say that, like, my kids
So
can
sounds
log
like we're
on when
pretty-
it's on YouTube. It's easy for them to figure out, like, they know the channel, they go to, like,
Right.
not that they're on it all the time, but, I just think it's more accessible for people.
And you're going
Well,
to check,
definitely
Chris,
more people
about
watching can
whether or
come to
not
the
it
meeting.
meets
For sure.
the
that.
regulations of,
Must
So-
TV.
It sounds like to me, we may not even do that. I think that if we're
We're
staying
doing it
exactly the way
YouTube.
we're doing it before, it'll just be live streaming, we know we're set with that.
Yeah.
okay.
And it's,
we
We'll
just.
just
staff member-
continue to do, we'll have the staff member either do from home or from here. Usually they're in the tech office doing it, which is just because they have the equipment there. But we'll just continue the same process we've been doing. Last couple of years.
Okay, and last is the reports and communications.
I attended the SEPTA meeting, as the board liaison. Patricia was there, actually. It was a good meeting the other night. And parent-to-parent network coming in, the parent advocacy group out of Niski, and April does a nice job. It was a good meeting, so it was good.
And just, I know I'm not supposed to speak too much during the meeting, but there is going to be, the SEPTA is gonna be doing October 15th, they're gonna be doing a special needs expo. So that's where we're getting tables from community groups and so forth that provide resources for parents. On support that's out there for parents and families. I meant to mention it in the privilege of the floor. but I
You're stealing my
just-
thunder.
What?
You're stealing my thunder, but that's okay.
Well, there's that. This part won't be your thunder. There also is on September 15th at Schenectady Central Park, the Down syndrome does buddy walk, which is open to the community, and Burt Hill's also.
Would you be willing to send that to all of us?
Absolutely.
The dates,
We
times,
send,
places, and
it out
everything
to the
like
staff.
that?
Sharon, I can have Sharon send it out.
Did
Okay.
you say
You
September
send it out to
15th?
everybody.
September
October
25th.
25th, okay, I
It's
misheard.
October
a
15th is
Sunday, I
Got it,
believe.
thank you.
It's usually, I can get the exact, I can send the information out, because, yeah,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
it's a very, the buddy walk, lot of
Buddy
people,
Walk's
so,
fun.
yeah,
I've been there before.
yeah, if you come early if you come, because it gets a lot of community support, it gets political support. The Special Needs Expo, we're gonna work to make it as good, this is our first shot at it, and we're gonna hopefully support the community as best we can. Sorry for stealing your thunder.
Yeah, that's fine, it's fine.
Where's it gonna be?
It's gonna be in the high school, the Special Needs
Okay.
Expo.
Good, thank you.
Dave, did you have anything else?
I'm good.
Me too.
I just wanted to say the parking lot looks amazing. So nice. And I had a really happy child who was able to get sushi.
Oh, yes, it's a new offering in the
Oh,
cafeteria. this year.
really?
We are
I didn't know
She was
that.
actually
Oh my God.
smiley. I was like,
It's nothing but sloppy joes and Dale.
And so,
We'll get these up to their game this year.
yeah, I was asked, is that gonna stay or is it just like a temporary thing?
To be honest with you, Jen, I think if it's a popular enough item, it'll stay. They can keep making it if kids order
So,
Fabulous.
it. What was that, Petra?
No, it's healthy, that salad bar came back too for the first time. Old
Oh.
stuff.
Oh, nice. Okay, good. That's all I have.
I am good. It looked like there were 2 items in report. Okay, perfect. I'm good. I'm glad everyone got off to a good week. First week of school, it seems like, and with the buildings. I do have to say, I was at the high school Saturday morning, and it was so nice to see how much stuff was going on at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. The place was literally packed with teams practicing, and there were instruments being played and kids playing and all kinds of stuff going on. There was, I have to remember to start bringing cash to the high school now because there was a concession stand for something going on. It was just really, really cool to see, and has been really cool to see things just opening up and kids just
So happy.
being allowed to be kids again. It's just been a great start to the year, and I hope that continues for the rest of the year.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I just want to say that it's been great to be back for the school year. So far, so good, and many students seem to be happy to be able to be back in school with everyone and be able to attend events outside of school, both sporting and not sporting. I enjoyed being at the PTSA meeting on Monday. They talked about a lot of interesting things, especially increasing student involvement and participation, which I believe would be a really great thing, and I look forward to helping out as much as I can with that. And also, Leadership Day is this Friday for the clubs. It's going to be my first time attending. I'm really, really excited. So, SGO Exec Board planned out all the activities that we're going to be doing. I know there's games, and then each club individually will get to have planning time, planning lunch. And if any board members or school employees want to attend, the best time would be 10 a.m. to noon. So that's when the activities and not the plenary are going to be happening.
Can we just come right through the front here, or do we have to come in a special door or anything, or
I
come right in the front, check
I
in?
don't know.
Yeah, we'll check in with security. If you do know you're coming, if you think you're coming, just let me know. I'll let Mr. Brunson know that you're coming, and I'll let security know so that you move through more quickly.
What day is that?
This Friday.
Friday.
Is that on the list, you said?
It is.
Okay, perfect.
I haven't been able to go yet. I will get there someday. Chris,
I have nothing this week, thank you.
what?
Until executive session.
Thank you.
And so the board noticed here that in under reports of communications, I put 2 new ARs, one dealing with district-owned cellular devices and the other dealing with use of gender pronouns, both some clarifying language there. So hopefully we had a chance to look at that. I know I put that out earlier in the week for you to see. Those go into effect immediately. Other than that, I mentioned the shared decision-making committee. We're going great. And I agree with what everybody said about just feeling such a great normal year. I think we estimated we had almost 4,000 people here the other night. It was one of the most crowded nights on Friday night that I've ever seen on this campus, in the library, parking at Stewart's, parking all the way down the roads for the football game against CTA. A lot of youth football kids out, little cheerleaders and football youth. We're all here, and there's a couple of volleyball games going on at the same time. It's great, just totally fun.
I had just one last thing. Thank you, Patrick. Board of Ed retreat. You guys please check your calendars for the 21st of September, so Wednesday, Monday the 26th, or Wednesday the 28th. It would be from as close to 5 as we could get, and then till 9.
The 21st, 26th, or 28th, you said?
Yes, because that seems to be the 3 dates.
I could do the 21st
do
or the
the
26th.
Okay.
21st, 26th, you say?
Which one's the
28th
board?
is board meeting.
Okay, well, that's
The 21st or 26th?
21st or 26th would be better.
No, the board meeting the 28th, I vote for the 21st, but I can do the 26th.
26th would be great.
I can't do the 21st. So is the 26th so far good for everybody then?
G6 is Monday.
We would then have a Board of Ed meeting on the 28th as well. So it's a busy board week. But I think it's really important to try and get together. So, Dottie, 26th it is.
Great. We can do it here? That's more interesting.
Monday Night Football.
No, we're gonna try and find a place for us to go.
TV's one.
Do it
I'll
out.
live stream it for you.
All right, maybe it'll be West Coast and you can catch a live and late game.
What?
She said interesting.
What time?
As close to 5 as we can get everybody
Do we
together.
have a location yet?
We'll get you the details.
We needed to work with the date first, because then Monday, if we're going to a restaurant, lots of restaurants are closed on Monday, so. Might have to be here with our Spartan catering, but that's okay too.
That was super yummy last time. I vote for stromboli if we're doing it here.
Mondays, a lot of restaurants are closed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the kids are eating sushi, so what are we gonna
The
get?
stromboli that Nikki made last time was delicious.
I don't want. sushi,
All right,
kids.
so we'll go with the 26th. Dottie will get us some details about what we can look forward to
I
here.
can't make it that day. Okay.
It is, let's see, we can certainly share materials with you.
That's fine, yeah.
You have a match. Where is it?
I could come, it's at 3, I could come back after.
What time are they typically
Or we
open?
could go to dinner in Sarasota.
Yeah, it depends.
Join us for dessert.
If
It
you're willing
depends
to
on
do
when it
that,
ends.
we'd be happy to have you.
Sure, yeah.
Don't stress about it, fit in it, you can fit it in.
Okay, yes.
Okay, so can I have a motion to move to executive session?
So moved.
Jen?
Second.
Third.
Last
I.
Yes.
What's going on here?
Field hockey, 4-0 at the half.
Yeah, I see people coming in today.
Columbia. Yeah, how come Jen?
Good night,
Chris,
everybody.
Good night, thank you for coming.